Or are we not live? Should be live now. Okay, we are live. Cool. And of course you can hear my mouse clicks because I got the gamer mouse. Alright. There is some delay. Alright. Cool. So. Hello, Cobalt. I'm doing a live stream. Isn't this exciting? Alright. I have one plan for this live stream. Well, technically two plans, but really it's one plan. And that plan is, I'm gonna read chat on my phone, because my second monitor died. I'm going to read chat on my phone, and I'm hopefully going to say a bunch of dumb crap. Because that way I can feed the wonders of the algorithm. And we're going to play Cultist Simulator in the background. I have a video up on Patreon. That's not live yet, but I have a video up on Patreon right now where I recommend this game. And the reason is because the author went ahead and, as part of his research, the author went ahead and he basically went ahead and he accidentally touched on a bunch of... I'm a bit quiet. How about now? Is that good? Yeah, I'm still messing with the audio a little bit, so if I'm quiet or if I'm too loud, I gotta wait for the stream delay. Sounds okay on headphones? Okay. If it sounds good now, we're all set. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to finagle some stuff, so. Alright, we're good? Okay. Okay. Welcome in. Alright. So, the reason I'm playing this is because I need something in the background, and I'm not showing my face on the Cult channel. I'm not doing that. That's not a thing I'm gonna do. That being said, like I was mentioning before we did an audio check, the creator of this game ended up basically reading a bunch of, like, real occult books as his inspiration. And I think that this game has really good music for background. Interested in your take on the Thelemic practice? Which practices? I'm not the most up-to-date on my Thelema, but I do have opinions about Thelema as a whole. We're just gonna start. And again, the game is in the background as... Game is in the background just kind of as background noise. Yeah, what... And if anyone has any questions, I will just answer them. So... Okay, so... A lot of the Thelemic practices, most of those come from the Golden Dawn, and a lot of those practices either get stolen from secret GD stuff that they weren't really talking about in public, that really aren't in the Regardi documents, or get refined and or corrupted by Crowley. One of the ones is... The one that jumps out to me the most is the LBRP. Crowley has you touch your groin because he's trying to activate the sacral chakra and that sacral energy, because sex magic is a very important part of Thelema. But the problem with that is he ends up accidentally doing the cavalry cross on that, And I absolutely hate that, because if you do the Cavalry Cross... The Cavalry Cross is the Cross of Sacrifice, so in essence, the Thelemic version is you're actually sacrificing a part of yourself during the ritual, in my opinion. That's not 100% how it works, but that really does appear to be how it works. Any Rosicrucian? Anything I do that is Rosicrucian is kind of like accidentally and incidentally done. That is where... Okay, so... He does have you touch the point where Yesod is, but the problem is you don't actually want to touch Yesod there, because he's having you touch Yesod instead of Tippereth, so you're foregoing the protective aspect of Tippereth for the astral activation of Yesod. Which does have its benefits, I will admit, but honestly, it's not always the most desirable thing. They do have good dailies. Rosicrucians do have good dailies, but I'm not a Rosicrucian, so... I am not a Rosicrucian, so I don't particularly use those as often as I could. I could definitely do Rosicrucian dailies more frequently, in all honesty. The Rosicrucian dailies, really a lot of the Rosicrucian dailies get rolled up into the ceremonial magic current as a whole, which is actually pretty great, because the Rosicrucian current, and I'm calling it a current just in like the standard, an occultist is talking about some kind of thing you can do magically. Oh, absolutely. Any simple rituals you can add to the MPR plus middle pillar dailies? It depends on what you are doing. So you could theoretically add sigil magic to it, and it wouldn't really be that big of an issue. But the thing about doing that is if you're adding sigil magic to that, it's really just its own practice at that point. Now, you could add the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram and add the analysis of the keyword. I've heard mixed things about that. I've heard very mixed things in... If you're using the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram, depending on which version, there's two. There's the unicursal that is the more thelemic version, and then there's the traditional version. The traditional version apparently does different things than the unicursal version. And then you can just slot in the analysis of the keyword with the LVX formula. And the LVX formula is low-key, it's just an invocation of the sun. If you're not familiar, it's just an invocation of the sun. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Using the LVX formula as a closing. That would be pretty good. Really, I'm not the biggest fan of using the... Honestly, I'm not really... It's weird. I used... When I was doing my initiations, I was using the, I was using the Kabbalistic Cross significantly more, and I was using the LVX formula a lot more. Cobalt, LVX is added in the analysis of the keyword when you start doing the, because you should be, yeah, if you go through and you read the Zelator stuff, you'll know where that is. It's just part of the LVX. Like, the LVX is included in the analysis. Make sure to mark your planetary. Oh, God. Planetary hours are great. You know, the Auber Melon video went out today, and I didn't mention it in the Auber Melon video, but there is a section where they straight up discount the existence of planetary hours, and it's low-key the funniest thing, because it's... If you know why planetary hours are there, it makes a lot of sense, because the planetary hours are there to, like, keep the consistency of the planetary days, really. But the Obermelon, like, Abraham von Worms is just like, yeah, planetary hours don't exist. It's total bullcrap. It's total crap. Which, that in and of itself is pretty funny. We're just gonna use money for this. A lot of times the that's actually something that's actually really funny to talk about. There's a lot of stuff in occultism that is just, it's there for a reason that we never explain. Like, a lot of times, yeah, it's Bubkus. A lot of times you go into an occult practice and you start doing a practice, and then it's like, oh, well, this occult practice is really good. Why are we doing it? Why do we care about the planetary days, right? And the reason we care about the planetary days is because that's when the planets are better. But then you get into the planetary hours, and if you get into the planetary hours, you start asking the question of how the hell these even came to be in the first place. Because if you look at the planetary days and hours, they don't really make sense as to why you're even paying attention to them. Like, why would you go ahead... What purpose does the planetary hours serve? And then you look into it, and then it's, well, the planetary hours exist in order to give even more math to the planetary days, so that it's more of a mathematical... It is a mathematical progression from the hours go in the order of the Chaldean order, and then they all start, and then we get the days from the hours. It's really fun, because if you look at the math of it and you enjoy math, it's really, really good in that front. I don't enjoy math on that front, though. I absolutely hate it, and, like, I love ciphers and stuff. Oh yeah, no, everything is super convoluted, and it's like, at some point it all just becomes just trust me, just trust me, it's better if you just don't pay attention. It is just better if you don't pay attention to the planetary days and hours half the time, and if you are paying attention to the planetary days and hours, it's so much worse, because, like, you know, if you go through and it's like, retrogrades are an absolute nightmare. Good evening. Good evening, Maru. I absolutely... If there's one thing I currently hate, it's, I said Maru. Right? I did? Yeah. I meant to say Maru. If there's one thing I currently hate, it's the planetary retrogrades. Because retrogrades, they never have a consistent, here is what this retrograde does. It is always a convoluted... So, Mars is retrograde, it does this one thing where everyone feels really de-energized. But if Mercury is retrograde, your computer and Wi-Fi start breaking. Oh, God. I love how it's, like, just the absolute worst. Planetary magic is, like, simultaneously the best and worst thing if you get into it. Because if you get into planetary magic, you get great results. And then if you get into planetary magic, you're simultaneously using, like, 13 different apps and, like, 2 Excel documents in order to keep track of what everything is doing. Like, every single time. It isn't... Hello, Opera. I have not looked into Vedic astrology, and I probably won't, because Vedic astrology just looks even more nonsensical than Western astrology. And Western astrology is already pretty insane, all things considered. Like, if you go through and you read all the Western astrology, even just reading Agrippa's astrological correspondences, like when he tells you to make talismans, is an absolute shit show. Oh, that's like the best way to do it. The best way to incorporate planetary magic is to just have planets, like, care about the planetary days and hours and care about nothing else. Retrograde, schmetrograde. Now I need to, yeah. No, Agrippa's great for Western astrology when you realize that he's not using modern astrology. The thing where Agrippa's terrible at is his Jewish Kabbalah is garbage. Like, I went through and I actually talked to somebody studying Jewish Kabbalah, and every time you go through and you find Agrippa's astrology, it's usually ironclad, but he's using a different form of astrology. So his astrology is good for, like, the astrology of the day, so to speak. His Jewish Kabbalah, on the other hand, is trash. And it makes no sense. And I had to talk to 2 Jewish Kabbalists to understand what the hell he was talking about, because he then proceeds to do this really coy, I'll teach you in person. He's been dead for 600 years. Like, he's been dead for 600 years. I can't exactly go ahead and just do that. I'd love to talk to Agrippa in person, but he's currently dead. And my necromancy skills are not exactly where I can just call him up. It's only been 600 years since he's been dead. Yeah, he's only been dead for 600 years. Which is weird to think about. Like, it's weird that we're still reading books from, like, the 1400s. And they're still relevant to modern occultism. Can you imagine that? Like, you don't do that in any other... I don't think you don't do that in anything that is not, like, art. And I think you don't do that in art because we're just like, we don't paint like the Renaissance painters anymore. But here occultists are, we're just kind of vibing in reading old books from like 600 years ago. Actually, I think it actually is like 600 years ago, thinking about it, because yeah, I think it actually is 600 years ago. Thanks for the talk. Also, keep in mind, there will be a VOD for this. There should be a VOD. I think YouTube does that. Somebody actually reached out and asked me about the VOD. Because they wanted to see it, and... yeah, there should be a recording of this. Oh god, I hope not. I hope Agrippa can't be evoked as an egregore at this point. That would suck. I sound like an IT person. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of ironic. I used to work in IT. Very funny. All IT people sound the same because we're, like, just done with the world. All IT people sound exactly the same because we're done with the world, and we're never mad at the people we have to help. We're always mad at the people who are causing the problems, which is the computer companies. It's absolutely nightmarish. Like, as an occultist... Oh, by the way, for any IT people in the chat, if in case you're wondering, the best thing you can do if you want to make the server run better, or if you want the internet and Wi-Fi to be fixed, prayers to Mercury. Prayers to Mercury in front of the router to appease the gods works every time. I don't know why. Like, if it's Merc retrograde, you're gonna have more tech issues, and you just call up the mercurial spirits and say, knock it off, and they go, oh, sorry, our bad. Didn't realize you needed that. You never want to call the users idiots, because it's never the user's fault. It's not the user's job to know all of the networking crap that is causing your day to suck. That makes sense? It's never... You know, it's like... That being said, effectively, I run a YouTube channel of explaining esoteric nonsense to people. Like, I'm depending on the day, I am either an occult rant channel or an explainer of esoteric nonsense. So, I assume I have greater patience. That's what I used to do. Like, the router at work would act up, and then I would just do a prayer to Mercury, and then the prayer to Mercury would cause everything to just be resolved instantly. Oh, salespeople. Oh, jeez. Funny enough, it's working in IT, which is what gave me the understanding that the Enochian Angels are basically just God's IT people, which is why they're so why working with them is such a nightmare. Because if you go talk to an IT person, you've got a 90% chance of them being annoyed because their day just kind of... Oh, okay, well... Let's, I think you did steal it from me. But I told you about it and then you tried it, so we just that's called collaboration. There we go. That is just called collaboration. Yeah, no, the Enochians really do act like IT people. I swear to God. Because you go to the Enochians, and the Enochians are always talking in incomprehensible language that only makes sense to them, just like an IT person. They're inhospitable to working with people, just like an IT person 90% of the time. And you go to try to work with them, and then they magically fix things from a different location, just like an IT person remoting into your PC. They really just are the IT people of the world, or of the angelic world. Which is part of the reason I haven't done like a full Enochian video, because I don't want to deal with them. Like, I just don't want to, like, because if I do a video on a topic, I have to have some familiarity with the topic, right? And if I have familiarity with the Enochians, that means I have to, like, talk to the Enochians. But if I'm talking to the Enochians, I'm going to go, like, slightly crazy. Complex question. Is Saturn the central figure in the Golden Dawn? I am probably mixing things up, but it seems... Saturn is not the central figure in the Golden Dawn system. That is the sun. The Golden Dawn is referring to the sun. If you look at the Golden Dawn, everything in the Golden Dawn system is solar-based. Like, every single thing is solar-based in the Golden Dawn system. To an excessive degree, because, if you look at lodge structures, I actually attribute the reason why lodge structures have so much infighting to the fact that the Golden Dawn system was actually just so absolutely jam-packed with being solar. The LVX is solar. The, analysis of the keyword, the LVX formula, light, that's a solar thing. All of their major rituals are solar-based. I think their symbol is even solar-based if you break it down enough. But, the double cube altar is not Saturnian. That's partially Saturnian, but the altar is not the main course or the main thing in that system. The double cube altar is symbolic of the Tree of Life and the Sephiroth. So the reason why that's there is actually because the double cube is supposed to be symbolic of all of the Sephira. So you have, if you look at it, it's supposed to be two cubes stacked on top of each other. Oh, are we dead here? I think we're just dead because I got too much dread. Yeah, oh, whatever. The reason why it's like that is because you've got the top, which is supposed to be Kether, the bottom is Malkuth, and the rest of the Sephira are the, 8... Yeah, the 8 squares on the sides. And we're just dead. I don't think anyone's a fan of Saturn. Like, no one's really a fan of Saturn. Yeah, I know. Skill issued. June the 28th again. There's cool things about Saturn, but nobody, like, actively likes working with Saturn. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You need to brush your teeth because otherwise bad things happen. You need to work with Saturn for the same reasons. You're not going to want to work with Saturn, but you got to work with Saturn. Yeah, that's really odd. That is ironic. I'm dying of despair. If this is not poetic, I don't know what is. Saturn is wonderful. I think really Saturn is not a spirit that you really have problems with. Oh, wait. My original plan was to stream this. I'm actually gonna pause. So, funny enough, Saturn is one of those planetary powers that you end up getting feminine and masculine versions of, like the spirits wise. There's one thing I know. Yeah, I have no preconceived notions about Catholics, actually. I was raised Protestant, which is very funny. But the whole time. Yeah. Saturn, the powers of Saturn are weird in that they're, depending on which part of the Saturnian powers you go to, you end up getting either masculine or feminine. Like, if you look at the angels, there's Cassiel, who is more or less the angelic Grim Reaper for the Hermetic version. I think it's actually Azrael who's supposed to be the angel of death, but... And then you have, I believe it's Zafkiel, who's the Archangel of Bina, who is significantly more... significantly more, nice. They're significantly nicer, all things considered. I'm convinced that there is a pipeline, and the pipeline goes something like this. Protestants become Hermetics, Catholics become Thelemites. I don't know why. They just seem to become Thelemites. It's very weird. At some point, I'm going to need to do a video collabing with somebody about the, At some point, I need to do a video about the weird Thelemic to the Catholic to Thelemic pipeline. It'll probably be a duo video at some point, or it might just be like a short. Because, for some reason, all mainstream religions end up taking you into one of the esoteric rabbit holes if you go down far enough. For Catholics, it's usually Thelema. For Protestants, it's Golden Dawn. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But that seems to be a weird recurring trend. And... only Catholics you know are alchemists? I can see that. Alchemists are in that, like, weird gray area, though. Where it's like... The alchemists are in that weird gray area where it's like, are you really occultists? You are. You kind of are. But also, like, Isaac Newton was one of you. So it's like, are you just scientists? Are you just really, really weird scientists with fizzy boiling flasks? I don't know. They could just be scientists with fizzy boiling flasks. Oh, that's true. The original GD was very much anti-Catholic. We're going with passion this time. The original GD was very anti-Catholic, but the original GD was anti a lot of things, like fun. My least favorite thing about occultism is that one of the most popular blinds in modern day occultism is blinds that are just due to sheer density of information. The sheer density of information in modern occult book, like in really, really good modern occult books, is absolute. There we go. That's the ticket. Literally. The sheer density of information in modern occult books is absolutely astounding, depending on what book you're looking at. Because you can look at the absolute most beginner book, and if it's written by the right person, you'll have to read it like 5 or 6 times in order to understand what is even being written about, because they just decided to go ahead and be like, yeah, so here's this book on dream magic. And now here's all of the esoteric things that you're just not going to have. You're just not going to understand them. I think the... What was it? Of course, I talk about how absolutely dense some books can be, and I get a mysticism. Or a mystique. My bad. Depending on... Do you think it is possible to have... Yes, because I had it. And then I got that fixed. It is possible to have post-Obermelin depression. It is absolutely a thing. It's also a really weird thing, too. It's also a really weird thing, because post-Obermelin depression isn't really, like... It's not normal. Well, nothing in the occult is normal. But, like, it's not normal in that it's not... You don't just go ahead and have this... It's really just working out things that you didn't work out pre-Obermelin. Like, it's kind of like this. You spent 6 months praying to God, 6 or 18, we'll call it 6. You spent 6 months praying to God, and now you have to go... What's that Buddhist idiom? Before enlightenment, go fetch water, chop wood. After enlightenment, go fetch water, chop wood. That really is what happens when you have, like, post-Obermelin depression, is just, you go through and you end up... Would you recommend... would I recommend the Obermelin for people newer to the occult? Sorry if this has been asked prior. It has not been asked prior, and that being said, the answer is... Only if your life is stable. Like, that's a thing that a lot of people don't seem to remember, is the Obermelin was originally... Thank you. The Obermelin was originally written to be the first ritual that people would do. So it's not that, oh, you don't have to go through this initiation. You can start with the Obermelin, and that would actually probably... Yeah, that is what happens. You end up, you finish the Obermelin, and then you end up going and using your newfound demons to get a better job at a better tech company, because you hate your current tech company. Yeah. No, because it's one of those weird things where you're just... The best way to explain it is you're really just burning off all of the kind of crud that you still have of the mundane world, because now the angel is there, and the angel is like, wow, magician, you live like this? We need to fix this. We need to clean up this. Wow, you go to this job? This job that you hate going to this job. Why do you still go to this job? Get a better job. And that's exactly how it feels. Because you go from being like, oh yeah, we're just gonna, like, I'm just gonna pray to God and he's gonna send me an angel. To, yeah, so now you have an angel. Now you have responsibilities for the, you know, chthonic spirits, because you need to employ those and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's supposed to improve your life. And you go through and improve your life that way. And that's not even talking about the letter squares. Oh god, the letter squares. So, I have to record a video on this. And it's going to be a Patreon exclusive, but I'm also going to talk about it here. And depending on how much I cover, I might just change what I'm doing for the Patreon exclusive. So, I absolutely hate the Obermelin letter squares. I hate the Obermelin letter squares because they're the most convoluted thing possible. And It's from an era where occultists, and especially old grimoires, were not clear and they were not formatted in any concise manner possible. So what'll happen is you'll go through and you'll do the Abramelin, and then it'll list all the letter squares, and you're presumably supposed to consecrate them all on the day you have all of the governors there, or all of the dukes there. I'm thinking Enochian still. You're supposed to consecrate all the things on the day you have the dukes there, but if you do that, you're going to have way more stuff, and not all of the squares are even functional. They're not all properly functional. So you just have a bunch of letter squares for... Alright, this is a quick poll for the chat. I want you to tell me what you would... Alright, would you want to make a rose garden appear, right? When would you want to make a rose garden appear in front of you? Because this is listed like 2 entries, but now everything is new. Oh god. We live in the worst, like, we live in the best worst time for occultism, because everything that's new is shiny, new, and a bunch of beginner crap. It's all crap for beginners. We have nothing that is intermediate or anything close. The occultist pipeline, as declared by the book publishers, is you start with a beginner book, you start with 70 of those, and then you go do the Abramelin, and then you get no books for the rest of your life. That is the entire occult pipeline. Oh, trust me, the angel is not just there to... The angel of the Abramelin is not just there to give you a bunch of advice. Like, you talk to the angel and you work through the lesson plan that the angel gives you. It's not just, you suddenly need to fix this thing in your life, right? Now, what I've noticed is that the angel will sometimes go ahead and they'll be like, you need to hold off on things. But sometimes it'll be like, you need to not hold off on things as much as you are. It's like a balancing act. It's kind of a course correction. That being said, the worst part of the Abramelin is absolutely the letter squares. And this is something that I will just hold to, because the letter squares are so convoluted. And while they are useful, there's a lot of them that don't make sense in modern day. And if you go through the procedure, you need to go through a bunch of steps. You need to have a mirror that you can have the spirits show you the letter square in. Making sure you're pure enough to acquire the constant presence of an angel, but to... being around cradicks because of the frequency. Funny enough, the angel... Part of the Abramelin that a lot of people don't seem to remember, and because I guess I'm just talking about this entirely now. Okay, is it sacrilege to modify the Abramelin? No. No, it is not sacrilege to modify the Abramelin. That's what the difference between the Den Abramelin and the Mathers Abramelin is. Both of those are actually modifications of a original Abramelin that we just don't have access to. The Abramelin as a whole is a... It's kind of weird because everyone is like, the Abramelin is the sacred text. And I want to just ask, if that is the case, if the Abramelin is this big sacred text and it's unmodifiable, I want you to tell me why the lineup in both of those books, the books at the sections with the spirits in the back, why are those so different? Why are the Abramelin... Because the first section is all, more or less correct. The first section is just you have these spirits. And all of those are more or less one-to-one in both the Obermelon and in the Den version of the Obermelon and in the Mathers version of the Obermelon. However, if you go through and you read those, and you read past the first page of the Demon Hierarchy, you start to notice a lot of really weird incongruencies between the two, which makes me think that they're not actually the same ritual and that they're actually modifications. Like, I think that they're both two different people's versions of the Obermelon that are just published under the same name because that was a thing you were allowed to do back in those days. Because a lot of people don't seem to remember the fact that, yeah, you could get away with publishing something as being this big, fancy, big-name book when it wasn't actually that. Which is really annoying, because that actually does somewhat explain the difference in the letter squares between the two versions, and why the Mathers version seems to actually be a later edition. Well, it is a later edition, we know that, but what I mean by that is there's actually more squares in the Mathers version, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you can... Not everything in the Obermelon needs to be followed to the letter, which is something that a lot of people seem to forget. You don't need to do the Obermelon one-to-one, and if you do the Obermelon one-to-one, it will slightly drive you crazy, because the Obermelon is an absolutely maddening ritual to do properly, because there is, you know, you get to find out your hard maximum of the maximum amount of prayer you can do from the heart, and the answer is, you find that out on the first day of the final week, and my answer is 12 hours. That is the most I can pray from the heart, because that is what you are required to do as per both the Den and the Mathers version. And it is absolutely maddening to do, because you go ahead, you think, oh, I'm just going to pray to God, and God's going to send me this angel, and then you realize that you have to pray, and you have to pray a lot. You pray 3 square prayers a day for 6 months at the minimum, and then you get the angel, and then it's like, you don't even get to meet the angel on day 1, which is the funny thing. You meet the angel on day 3, because if you actually do the ritual... And it actually tells you this. What it does is it goes ahead and it says, yes, on day 1 you need to pray, for the entire day. And from there, you just go... and every third house had a magic table of squares and almond wand, presumably. Yeah. I mean, if you read it, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like everyone was a magician, basically, in those days. Even if that's not true. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And if you... I absolutely love the fact that... I mean, at least it's one of the better books. Like, at least it's one of the better occult books to actually talk about. Because at some point I'm going to have to do an Enochian video. And I'm dreading doing, like, a fuller Enochian video, because I have one that is, like, a primer up on the Patreon. Because generally I don't go into depth. I'm very much a paint and broad strokes channel, as it is. But the difference between it, like, going from Enochian to the Obermelon, because I was doing some Enochian experiments at some point. Going from Enochian to the Obermelon is like night and day, because at least the Obermelon is more or less straightforward. The difficulty in doing the Obermelon is the technicalities of it. Because the technicalities of the Abramelin are... What? Okay, there we go. The technicalities of the Abramelin are more... You have to pray, and you have to use an incense and a specific type of oil that is used from Genesis and that kind of thing. But overall, it's really just a lot of prayer. I actually ended up quitting alcohol, like, the entire 6 months, and I quit meat for the last 2. Because, I quit meat and was, like, fully vegan for the entirety of the last section of the Abramelin, and it was an absolute nightmare, and I hate it. If I never eat another dish with rice again, it will be too soon. Like, most of my diet for the end of the Abramelin was basically just rice and other vegetables. I wouldn't call it better. It's better for spirituality, but, you know. I looked great after doing the Abramelin. I lost a lot of weight. That's always fun. But overall, I would say that you're supposed to be exhausted for the entirety of the final week. You're supposed to be exhausted. Because you're basically, like, the final week you're supposed to be fasting from dawn till dusk. So, fasting automatically improves spirituality. We know that. You're supposed to be restricting yourself and doing a bunch of spiritual purity exercises. You're basically purity maxing. The entirety of the Abramelin is just purity maxing. Overall. Like, there's nothing really... I hate that the most famous ritual in the Western occult pantheon is just prayer. It's just a lot of prayer. And that's not even the ritual. The actual ritual is, like, binding the demons, and the demons are... You know. The demons are a whole thing. Depending on... Like, because there's different types of demons, too. Because the Abramelin demons are like the infernal demons, but then you got the demons of, then you've got Agrippa's planetary demons, and they're a whole thing in and of itself. Those function more like elementals, I almost want to say. Yeah. I would definitely say it's one of the more anticlimactic rituals, just because you go through and you talk about, like, oh yes, we're going to be doing the Abramelin, and then it's like, ah yes, we're just praying. You're just praying, and then it's like, we're going to keep doing the Abramelin, and it's like, now we're praying twice a day, and then it's like, we're going to keep doing the Abramelin. It's like, then you get to stage 3, and then it's like, the third stage of the Abramelin is you're praying 3 times a day, and you're not allowed to eat meat. You're not allowed to eat meat and sugars, and you have to do the Daniel fast for, like, 2 months, and it's like, oh god. It just makes you want to do anything else, really. It just makes you want to do anything else, because, like, the thing about the Abramelin is that, like, part of the reason it works is it's really just a spiritual war of attrition. Like, it's a war of attrition with, like, your mundane desires, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is you go through, and if you look at all the things, the important thing is you need to just keep going regardless of what's going on. You need to just keep going, and as long as you just keep going, eventually the angel will show up, and then you are to keep going even further. And then after you have the angel show up, the reason you keep going after the angel shows up is because you're going to need to keep going and actually, you know, you need to actually go through, and once you've started talking to the angel will tell you to keep going, because there is like a point of no return where you get so spiritually pure that the angel is able to bind itself to you, and then you have dominion over the chthonic / infernal demons. And that's the entire point of the ritual, is to make sure that the angel can't leave you. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to just have spirits show up, and then if you don't do that, you're going to have the spirits be like, oh yes, we're going to just, like, you know, we're just going to fuck up your day. You, person with an angel bound to you, you think you're better than us? You think you're better than the literal demons of hell? We'll show you, and that's why you need to bind them, because otherwise the demons are just going to be like messing your entire day up. Legit just gonna start this. We'll see how it goes. Alright. I had two goals for this stream. One is to rant about esoteric nonsense, and the second is to play this game. And currently I am ranting about esoteric nonsense. As I should. I would say that, like, I'm trying to think. Of all the things in the Obermelon, or of all the things in Western occultism, I would say that the Obermelon is probably the easiest thing to start with, but it's also the thing that... I think I mentioned this in the video that went up today. I swear to God that there is a demonic campaign. There is a demonic PR campaign where people just will say ignorant crap about the Obermelon because they've never done it. They've never read the book. And like this, there's this impermeable... There is like this impermeable aura around the Obermelon and the egregore of the Obermelon that is just... Yeah, we're just not going to go ahead. And we're just not going to make it so you can actually just do the ritual. We're going to keep spreading misinformation. And I think that I'm genuinely starting to believe that that is a demonic PR campaign about not wanting people to bind the demons. Because I think that the world was a lot better off when we were going ahead and binding demons. Because, like, I've heard some nonsense about this, about the Obermelon. Like, you need to go buy a house before you can do the Obermelon. You need to go buy a new house. That is nowhere in the book. That is nowhere in the book. I've heard some wonderful things, like, oh, after you do it, you have to do all this other stuff. And it's like, no. But is it really the Obermelon if you didn't buy another house? Because I assume if you buy a house, you can get multiple Obermelons by this logic. Because what you do is you buy multiple... Nope, you're good. There is a little bit of a stream delay, in case anyone is unaware. Yeah, the Obermerlin. My favorite thing is I was told once before I did the Obermelon, and I was mid Obermelon because you're allowed to like live more or less normally for the first part. Cool movie. Yeah, no. I absolutely love the fact that everyone gets their opinions about the Obermelon from a Dark song. Like, I love that everyone gets it from a movie that has absolutely no basis in being the real Obermelon. You don't... At one point... Oh, God, where do I even begin on that? My favorite Obermelon take was the person who said that you have to shave all your body hair daily. What? What is wrong with people? What? Why are people like this? I don't... I love the logic that you need to buy a house for it. Left field question, but what are your thoughts on Crowley's practice to recover past life memory? I am not familiar enough with that in order to comment. Just going with my gut feeling, if it's based on like yoga or Eastern stuff that Crowley picked up, it's probably fine. If it's based on any Golden Dawn stuff, then the past life stuff is probably trash. Just because that seems to be how Crowley seemed to do things, unfortunately. What do you mean, though? Yeah, a lot of Crowley's stuff is actually pretty good, but the problem is Crowley was... We didn't need to know that. But yeah, no. The thing is, a lot of Crowley's stuff is actually pretty good. His Obermelon attempt was not. His Obermelon attempt was like... If Crowley had been... And it also depends on when he wrote it, I guess. Because the thing about Crowley that people don't seem to understand is there's 3 different versions of Crowley writing. Which is kind of, you know, occultists as a whole tend to ignore the progression of time. But the thing about it is that Crowley specifically, right? One of the things that's important to know is that there's young Crowley, like just out of, like, Golden Dawn Crowley, and like just got kicked out of the Golden Dawn. Middle Crowley, where he is huffing his own farts, possibly literally. And then there's late, like, old man Crowley, where he's getting into yoga, he's calmed down, and then he's realized maybe some of the stuff I was thinking before wasn't exactly accurate. Like, maybe the stuff I was thinking before wasn't exactly accurate. Maybe some of the stuff was a little bit wrong. Maybe it was a little bit right. That's the thing about Crowley. Because depending on which, like, what time frame Crowley wrote something, changes entirely what my opinion of it is. Because you go through, and early Crowley is... There's, like, hotshot Crowley, egotistical Crowley, and old sage Crowley. That's like literally that is how the progression of Aleister Crowley's writings go. Is you start off with hotshot, I am the master of magic, I know everything, I am the one who has solved all the problems. Then you have egotistical, I wrote the book of the law Crowley. Then you have old man Crowley, who kind of has this thing going where it's like, maybe I was wrong because I'm broke. Maybe I was wrong because I'm actually broke now and I lost all my money. That might be a thing. Maybe that's what the spirits were saying was a problem that I was having. kind of ironic as that is. I actually do own a copy of Book of the Law, but it's my least favorite occult book, and it is completely separate from all my other occult books. Just because I don't want to have to, like, I don't want to go grabbing an occult book and then accidentally pick up Book of the Law, because Book of the Law is an absolute... Oh man, I'm so glad I'm not a Thelemite. I am so glad I'm not a Thelemite and that is not my holy text. Because I'm pretty sure that having to justify the barcode section... Having to justify what the barcode section means would be an absolute nightmare and ruin my day. Possibly ruin my week. I don't know. I think Karanzan definitely won the battle when he was trying to do the Abramelin. Because he didn't exactly do things properly. That's why that house is so haunted, because he was basically trying to, like... If the Abramelin, the central core tenets of the Abramelin are just Purity Max and Prey, Crowley decided to do the exact opposite, and then he eventually got yelled at by his angel. Like, he did such a terrible job that his angel showed up regardless to tell him that he was doing stuff wrong. If we believe that Iwaz is actually his HGA. Which I'm not entirely sure if they are. I'm not entirely sure. It's possible that Iwaz was just some Egyptian spirit that was just kind of roaming around and just wanted to use Crowley as a prophet because they know he was doing some magical stuff in a hotel room. That's entirely possible. But then again, I'm not exactly the best person to ask about Crowley, because I pride myself on having only read the Book of the Law as, like, in terms of what I have read of Crowley's works, because I try to keep Crowley as far away from my occult reading shelf as possible. Except for Liber 777, but thanks to the wonders of Stephen Skinner, I no longer need to read 777. Thank you, Stephen Skinner, for the Magician's Tables. I no longer need to read it. Oh, boy. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Stephen Skinner went ahead and he made a book called The Complete Magician's Tables. I highly recommend it. He covers a lot more than Crowley had access to. He covers the powers of all the Goetics. He covers what Barden's spirits are, which, if you're not familiar with that, Franz Barden, notable occultist, wrote a book titled The Art of Summoning Spirits, where he proceeded to completely and totally make up, like, a bunch of the lineup. And I don't mean made up in a good way. I mean made up in a very, very bad way. Like, if I remember correctly, the Venerian spirits are, like, the corrupted names of, like, Voodoo Loa? Come on, mouse. Like, it's overall just an absolute travesty of a grimoire. And a lot of people will come to the defense of Franz Barden saying, oh, it's a poor translation for his first book, Initiation into Hermetics. Yeah, he definitely does. He definitely does. He takes the Archangels of the Zodiac from the Picatrix and just has that as his lineup for... We're going to start our magical order. Yeah, no, it's, they weren't the Loa, they were like... They weren't the lower... Oh yeah, no. I absolutely hate Franz Barden. He is my least favorite occultist. Of all the occultists, Franz Barden is my least favorite one. Like, every single occultist, I would say, like, every single occultist, genuinely, has some amount of good, high-quality things you can find in their books. And then you read Franz Barden, and then you read the first couple of chapters of Initiation into Hermetics, and it's pretty good. And then you get to chapter, I believe it's chapter 5 of Initiation into Hermetics, and then Initiation into Hermetics goes downhill very fast. It, like, lead parachute levels of fast, because he then proceeds to, like, okay, now that you've done all this meditation, set this cotton ball on fire. Just, like, set this cotton ball on fire with your mind. Which might actually be pretty, like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Except for the fact that, you know... Except for the fact that he then proceeds to later on say that that was a blind, if I remember right. Like, I don't know what was going on with Barden, but you go through and you read Initiation, and it's, you know, I'm not going to call it good. I'm not going to call Initiation into Hermetics good by any means, but it's at least competently and, like, competently written. But then you read The Art of Summoning Spirits, and that's just... Oh, no. Oh, no. 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 The Art of Summoning Spirits is an absolute travesty. Because, like, you read the first part, and it's like, here's how you summon spirits, and it's generally pretty good. I don't think you remember... Was that not a blind? Was the setting things on fire with your mind thing not a blind? It's been a while since I read Barden, and I don't usually reread... I haven't read Initiation into Hermetics in a hot minute. Yeah, no. Like, Initiation into Hermetics, the setting things on fire with your mind thing, I think is a blind. I think he, like, outright says that. He doesn't say it's a blind in the book. I could have swore he says somewhere that that was a blind. Like, it was it was the most transparent blind possible. But I could be wrong. It's possible that it was just, I'm misremembering. But I definitely remember hearing somewhere that he said that that was a blind to keep the quote black magicians from actually initiating. Or the would-be black magicians. I could be wrong. I do know his spirit book is awful, though. That's the reason I hate his spirit book. Like, I hate Barden because of The Art of Summoning Spirits. Where he then proceeds to go ahead and... what does he do? He lists demons of the Abramelin as the zone girdling the earth. He lists a bunch of elementals, I think, are also there. For the lunar powers, I believe he just straight up puts the lunar mansions in. He might not do it there. His solar lineup is Arabic star names. His Jupiterian spirits are just the zodiacal archangels from the Picatrix. His Venerian spirits are just corrupted ATR spirits. I don't remember where he got the martial ones from. but I know he got the Mercurials from the Shemham Farash. Do I recommend solo practice or joining an order? I think you already answered this in one of your videos. I am a solitary practitioner. That being said, I do collab with other solitary practitioners a lot. So I'm in a weird place where I'm like halfway between a solitary practitioner and halfway between a lodge practitioner. That being said, I'm not part of a lodge, and I don't recommend you join lodges because I think lodges cause more drama. I think lodges genuinely cause more drama. No. Barden's initiation book is, like, actually decent. It's his, like, what have I done? Barden's initiation book is actually decent. The problem is his evocation manual, like, his spirit catalog is absolutely garbage. Like, Barden's spirit catalog is his art of evoking spirits is absolutely trash. That's the one you should steer clear of. But I think that if you take and you cherry pick Barden's book, you cherry pick the first one, you'll be fine. Just take it with several grains of salt, and when you get to the lighting things on fire with your mind section, I highly recommend that there's a very easy way you can get past the lighting things on fire with your mind section, and that is taking a lighter and just lighting it yourself. What are we doing here? Yeah, that's a weird thing. I don't actually like the unicursal version because of that weird Saturn problem I had a while back. But lodges are more drama because you're always going to have somebody who wants to be at the top, and if you don't have somebody who wants to be at the top, if something bad happens to the person who is in charge of the lodge, then you end up having a power struggle. And naturally, lodges are more prone to power struggles than solitary magic and what I'm going to call loose association groups, or Confederate magic, basically. Like, lodges are more like a business than they are like a family. Like, if you had, like, a magical family, more like a coven situation, that one might be okay, but then you're, like, still subordinate to the rules of the coven, and, like, I just prefer solitary practitioner stuff. And then, if I have any questions, I can just ask other solitary practitioners. That's just what I do. What most people don't know is that there is an angel for curing stupidity in people. That angel is Anabiel. You can use the angel Anabiel, and you can do a quick invocation of them to cure stupidity in people. They are a very useful angel. They used to be popular back when Wiccan Tumblr was a thing, because everyone found out that there was an angel for curing stupidity, and they thought that that was amazing. Oh god, don't even get me started on Thelema Bros. Thelema Bros are everything wrong with the occult community, and what my problems are with Thelema distilled into one person or one, like, group type. Thelema Bros are the absolute worst people you can encounter in the occult space, and I absolutely hate them. Like, legitimately. I think they make all occultists look bad by proxy. Yeah, Thelema Bros are the absolute worst group of people. LibGen. If you have access to LibGen and you want to know what good... Like, if you have the name of a good book, you can go to LibGen and you can get a PDF of it. 9 times out of 10. And you don't want access to Thelema Bros. Nobody wants access to Thelema Bros. The Thelema Bros want access to everyone who... The Thelema Bros want access to anyone that they can, quote, make their Babylon. And if you know about Crowley's sex magic history, you would know that that is not a good thing. Even though that's not really a Crowley thing, that's more of a Parsons thing that Crowley kind of gets credit for, but it's actually more of a Parsons thing. Jack Parsons is really the guy who made modern Thelema. Like... You know, the entire concept of the Thelema Bros really is... The entire concept of the Thelema Bro is really just Jack Parsons. Like, Jack Parsons really just did a lot of unsavory things. We'll call it unsavory and be charitable. How about that? Because Jack Parsons did a bunch of Jack Parsons did a bunch of rituals where he ended up effectively Babylon maxed. What suggestion? My opinion on Thelema Bros is to stay away from them. All of them. That's also my opinion for, like, anything in old grimoires that, like, basically start describing women as eldritch creatures, like Agrippa. Also, in case it wasn't incredibly obvious, I am incredibly easy to get off track. But yeah, what I wanted to say about Parsons before I forget it. Parsons created Thelema, like modern day, the concept of Thelema Bros was a Parsons invention, because he read some stuff about... Oh, I didn't actually see that. It just... Why did that not show? Oh, yeah, no. Using Benro's Scrying Guide to evoke the spirits of the Arbitel would probably be, like, legitimately the best idea you could do. Legitimately. Like, that is the best way you could do it. Because, then you get the wonders of evoking, like... You get the wonders of invoking the Arbitel spirits, which is automatically, like... The Arbitel spirits are already pretty great. The Arbitel spirits, like the Olympic planetaries, they get an A+ in my book. Ben Rowe's Scrying Guide is probably the best guide on scrying, and is like, for those of you still waiting for me to do like a scrying guide or like a video on scrying, spoilers for that. Half of it is just going to be the like read the Ben Rowe scrying guide and just use that. Like half of it's just going to be use the Ben Rowe scrying guide, because that's just a great scrying guide. Absolutely wonderfully written. But then again, the Olympic planetaries are just good in general. Like, if you're not familiar with the Olympic planetaries, you really should be. Because the Olympic planetaries, the thing about the Olympic planetaries is that they're not exactly... They're not good. They're not evil, though. They're kind of the neutral... They're kind of a neutral to benevolent spirit, I'd say. Like, they're not exactly going to be causing you problems, but they're not exactly going to be unworkable like a lot of chthonic entities would be. And they give good familiars, and there's something to be said about good familiars. Good familiar spirits, if you can talk to them and you get a course correction every now and again, are just good things to have. I'm working on them. Never ask Saturn to help you with your art career. Oh boy, never ask Saturn to help you with your art career. You will... Yeah. Yeah, that's words to live by right there. That's how you end up becoming a furry artist for commissions. You ask Saturn to help you with that, and that's what ends up happening. Okay. That sounds awful, but it also sounds incredibly Saturnian. That sounds incredibly Saturnian. Oh yeah, that is a jam moment. Day after that happened, I watched your video that mentioned losing your car. What video was that in? What video was that in? Because, like, I remember vaguely saying that, but I don't remember what video that was in. Also, for those of you wondering why I don't do courses, I'm working on them. I just need to figure out what should be in the course. Like, I know a lot of people want, like, protection magic. And I am working with some people on, like, making some courses, but that's coming down the pipeline. Okay, so I said I didn't want to talk about Sophia because Sophia's kind of the odd man out in a lot of regards to a lot of things. Like, Sophia Sophia doesn't follow the pattern of any other spirit. She's a feminine wisdom goddess. Sophia means wisdom, like if you translate it. That one's 7-minute mark. Idris is just in the chat. Oh boy. I know, we're working on the courses. But yeah. So, the thing is, the reason I didn't want to talk about Sophia in the Divine Feminine video is because Sophia really does... If you remember the Divine Feminine video, I was talking mostly about how the Divine Feminine receives a lot of stuff, and the thing about Sophia is she breaks the mold in regards to everything possible. She's, one, Gnostic, which means that she is inherently outside of the realm of the norm, because that's what Sophia and the Gnostics do, is if you start talking about something Gnostic, it immediately starts being in its own separate category of weird. If you look at Sophia, she's effectively both the cause and the effect of everything in the Gnostic pantheon, if I remember correctly. And it's been a while since I've studied Gnosticism, so I need to, brush up on my Gnosticism, but for the most part, the reason I don't like talking about her is because, more or less because she is an absolute mess. And she is an absolute mess to talk about, and oh, she's getting her own video at some point. If I need to drag somebody onto a live stream, maybe the Gnostics are the norm? I mean, I hope not. God, I hope not. I hope the Gnostics aren't the norm. But yeah, Sophia and, the entirety of Gnosticism will be covered at some point. But, the TLDR is that while I do think Sophia is really cool, she might be... I don't know how I'm going to present a lot of the info I have. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to do an entire video on, the wisdom gods, like Thoth, Odin, Raziel, that kind. And I'm going to proceed to talk about Sophia. And it's gonna, the entire tone of the video is going to shift, and the only way I'm gonna be able to do it right is I'm gonna have to record something, I'm gonna do my normal podcast-style video for everything else, and I'm gonna shift to me doing, an MS Paint-style drawing of what they are. Oh, yeah. It definitely does, but, the only way I could have covered Sophia in the Divine Feminine video properly is she is a wisdom goddess, and if we've learned anything from that video about how, the feminine aspect of reality receives things, she receives the most shit in her cosmology. Because you can basically blame her, because I believe she's the cause of why the Demiurge exists. Sophia is the cause of why the Demiurge exists, right? Depending on the version of Gnosticism you're paying attention to. I think that's correct. And if that's the case, then, Sophia is the direct cause of all misery in the world, but also the cause of all joy. But also receives shit for creating the Demiurge. But is also trapped by the Demiurge. Sophia is the most masculine, feminine entity due to the weird nature of Gnosticism. Just as a whole. Yeah, I need to reread Lacan. I need to read Lacan and his concepts. I also need to go back and like re-record, not re-record, but like redo older videos of mine from like years ago, because I still get comments on I still get comments on a lot of my older videos, and I don't like them anymore. Yeah, that's a good way to explain Sophia, I think. I know, I mentioned, yeah. I know Lacan doesn't mention Sophia, but Lacan is brought up in a lot of occult circles I'm in, so I should probably go back and reread them. It's just kind of another book recommendation that I should probably read. Definitely. If Adris is still in the chat, now is you have my full permission to just mention a topic that I have not talked about, so I can ramble about it. Oh hey, Sudatha's here. Nice. Okay, so send this out. Yeah, because Adris, we've talked a little bit about Sophia and how they're getting covered more eventually. Trademark. Eventually. Enochian, I've talked about the Abramelin. Oh, Saturn-related conspiracy theory. Okay. You want my cult conspiracy theories? Here we go. The Abramelin misconceptions are all demonic propaganda to get you to not do the Abramelin, because no one can remember them properly. The spectrums of light and their effect on possible entities. Cool. This is a bait for getting me to talk about the light bulb theory, but I'm taking your bait. So my biggest conspiracy theory is that so this mostly applies to the States. So the thing about it is that light bulbs, if you look at light bulbs, right, they give off a very specific frequency of light. And this frequency of light is actually solar correspondent. And this is solar correspondent if you have an incandescent light bulb, because it's actually burning the filament. Now, the thing about it is, we have started to move away from incandescent filament bulbs to halogen and LED bulbs. Halogen bulbs are lunar because they're cold light, and LED lights are mercurial. Now, as anyone who is a programmer can attest, mercurial energy is the easiest for spirits to screw with. So when you go ahead and you have a bunch of LED light bulbs, you are no longer banishing hostile entities. You're actually kind of empowering them in a weird way. talk about why people suck at money magic. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why people suck at money magic. Like, there is a bunch of reasons why people suck at money magic. People usually suck at money magic because they get the formula wrong. The formula is not that hard to remember. Like, the formula is not that bad. All you really need to do for money magic is to just open up doors. Open up doors. Oh yeah, I got the light bulb theory from Frederick Xavier, actually. But I did kind of expand it a little bit. Because, I added charts. I added charts and graphs, and I checked the charts and graphs, and if you look at all of, like, the depression rates, they actually skyrate. Like, they skyrocket when you change the light bulbs. It's actually kind of concerning. At least in the States. The data in the States. But they don't want you to think about that. They don't want you to think... The man doesn't want you to think about the light bulbs. Because they need to serve their demonic familiars in order to... They need to serve their demonic familiars in order to make people depressed so that their demonic familiars can feed on them and make them more money. Because that's all they know how to do is make money, because they forgot how to do anything else, because nothing in life matters to them. Because their lives are bleak and depressing, I assume. But yeah, money magic, like, depending on the person, they're bad at money magic for different reasons. Like even in this chat, I had somebody asking about why I don't do courses, and that's because I'm terrible at letting people pay me for things. That's it. Eventually courses will come out. They'll be out by the end of the year. They'll probably be out by the end of the summer. Probably. Knowing how things are. Idris expected DM after the stream. But yeah. It all depends on the people. Like, lack mentality, sometimes it's not lack mentality. I think Frederick Xavier really overestimates mentality a little bit. But I actually do like Frederick Xavier like half the time, but I think he is a little bit too psych paradigm for me. Sometimes you do have like metaphysical things blocking you from getting what you want. Sometimes you do genuinely just have things that are blocking you from getting what you want. And it's not that, oh, you're bad at money magic because you just have a lack mentality. Sometimes you just can't get money to flow to you because there's no way for money to flow, right? But then again, I do like Frederick Xavier. I do like his content. Frederick Xavier, when he's right about stuff, he's usually really right. And when he's wrong about something, he is so painfully wrong, it hurts my soul. Like, if you want my updated opinion on Frederick Xavier, that is my opinion on Frederick Xavier. He's great when he's great, and when he's bad, he's really bad. Like, terrible. In his, what was it? I forget which course it is. I think it's his God Forms course. In his God Forms course, spoiler for the God Forms course, I guess, he says that the Holy Guardian Angel is the higher self. And his rationale behind this is, do you really think God would create an angel for every single person on Earth? And if you read Jewish Kabbalah, God created not only an angel for every single person, but an angel for every single blade of grass. So by that logic, yes, God definitely created an angel for every single person that has ever existed. Now, does God probably recycle? If you believe in reincarnation, do you believe that, like, it's possible that you could believe that God has an angel for every single person, but people reincarnate so God can recycle the angels effectively? As weird as that sounds, recycling angels sounds like it's the weirdest possible thing. But hey, there you go. That's my opinion on there. That being said, I think Frater Xavier's Servitor course is decent. If you want my favorite Frater Xavier courses, his Planetary Magic program I still go back to. That and his Candle Magic program. I genuinely, you know what? Honestly, that would be weird. That would be weird, especially because like you want the best Frater Xavier programs. The best stuff Frater Xavier has done is probably his Planetary Magic course and his Candle Magic course, which I go back to constantly. I go back to his Candle Magic, I go back to his Planetary Magic course constantly. That being said, like, when Frater Xavier is right, he's really right. And when he is wrong, it hurts my soul. Because, especially because I have... The only Frater Xavier course I didn't pick up is the Zodiac one, or the Tarot one. The Tarot one that he's, his, subscription course. And that's just because, yeah. There used to be a video on my channel about Frater Xavier. I took it down because I had too many people. Basically, the problem is Frater Xavier has done... Frater Xavier does that... Oh, yeah, no, the Mind program is great, too. That is pretty good. Like, all of his programs are pretty good. It's just... I can't even complain about his programs that much, because, like, most of the problems I have with it, it's like, it'll be 80% gold, and then, like, one little thing that I disagree with vehemently. But everything else around that is, like, amazing. So it's like, yeah, you know, it's one... It's like 80% stuff I agree with and stuff I like, and then that one thing, the one thing that doesn't ruin it, but it's like kind of a disclaimer for my recommendations. I gotta like couch my recommendations a little bit. So, I hate that. But yeah, I used to have a video on my channel that I made like years ago at this point, where I was basically saying it's kind of sad that Frater Xavier is just doing, like, content for new people still. But it's kind of fine, because he is kind of like a gateway drug into the occult, in a way. Which is weird. Like, it's kind of weird, because you can actually tell... There's a weird thing where you can tell when somebody got into the occult based on who they got into the occult from. Because they're, like, people join the occult in waves, so to speak. Do I utilize thought forms and servitors? No, but I used to. Thought forms, I think... Okay, well, that's not true. Thought forms I use quite a bit. Servitors I don't use anymore because I have, like, actual, like, real spirits. And... yeah. Yeah, I don't use thought forms and servitors that much anymore. I used to use servitors a lot more. Well, I didn't use them a lot, but I dabbled with them a little bit. Thought forms I definitely used a little bit. The translator is doing a wonderful job. You are totally fine. We have spirits at home. Yeah. Oh, that's what's going on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thought forms really do feel like spirits at home after you get real spirits. Like, you can... Oh, God. Don't even get me started on Discordianism. Oh, jeez. Discordianism is, like, objectively the worst. Like, it definitely feels like the worst thing, really. I would say that of all the magical traditions and, like, of all the philosophical and psychological paradigms, Discordianism is definitely the worst. Like, just straight up the absolute worst. That face when everything is magic. Oh, God. Everything being magic as part of, like, everything being magic as a paradigm is probably, like, the worst thing you can have as a strict paradigm. If only because it's like, yes, we have people get the wrong impression that I hate chaos magic. I don't hate chaos magic. I hate the people who do chaos magic. Like, because a lot of people who do chaos magic are... chaos magicians are... They're one of two things. They're either the most intelligent people in the room when you're talking about magic, because they have, like, 5 different paradigms and, like, 6 different things under their belt that they just know, and they've concocted, like, this absolutely monolithic Rube Goldberg system that is completely beautiful, or they're crazy. And, like, I mean that in, like, they're trying to use demons, but they're acting like they're trying to use demons as demons, but then they're acting like they're gods, and at the same time they're insulting them, and it's like, demon of money, get me money. Get me money, but also you're a false god, or you're a fallen god, so I appreciate you, fallen god. It's a whole thing. I hate... You basically have to play, like, is it a good magician or is it a bad magician whenever, like, you talk to a new chaos magician. Because, like, half the time you'll get, like, somebody going through and doing, like, ah, yes, I'm doing really good, like, I'm doing tech magic. And that'll be interesting, because their tech magic will be really good, and it'll be really well thought out. And then you get the things that I just read in chat of, like, oh, great Superman, please save me. And it's like, what are you doing? What do you do? Like, why are you going to the god form of Scrooge McDuck for money? Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? Have you considered literally anything else? The worst part is when the chaos magicians who go to Scrooge McDuck and, like, Superman get results. Because then you have to question why their results work. Oh yeah, there's a difference between chaos and, like, the Greek spelling with a C-A-O-S and, like, the primordial chaos, like that, and chaos, like, C-A-O-S. And Discordian and chaos magic. Oh man, that's a video. That's a video that's getting done. This touches on a topic that really annoys me. There's 15... Where did you see the Scrooge McDuck magic? Because I know somebody who actually does that IRL. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna scream. I hate that. I hate that so much. And I know that you're right. I know that you're telling the truth. Like, the Scrooge McDuck magic was just something that I pulled out of a hat. It's that standard trend of me, like, accidentally pulling on something in the aether that's true. But the thing that I absolutely hate about occultism is because we have, like, 5 different words. Like, we use the same word, and the only difference is spelling. So I can say Kabbalah, and depending on what letter I'm saying that Kabbalah with, it's a completely different Kabbalah. And they're all pronounced the same. Yeah, they're all pronounced the same. Like, if you go through, depending on which version of magic you're doing, you're going to see a bunch of words, and they're going to be spelled incredibly strange. And depending on that spelling is very important, because we occultists and we magical practitioners love our spells. And we love our spells, we love our spelling, and we love to make sure that people need to know the difference between Kabbalah with a Q, a K, and a C. Not that the C one actually matters. Nobody actually cares about the Kabbalah with a C. Nor should they, really. I think the day that Kabbalah with a C comes up in modern context and I actually have to, like, know what it is, it's going to be an absolute... that's gonna suck. That's gonna suck, because I'm gonna be like, Christian Kabbalah? Why is Christian Kabbalah coming up? And then we have to deal with a bunch of esoteric Christians who don't know the history of all the other occult traditions, and then, like, at least the Hermetics try. At least Hermetic occultists, like, try to know what other traditions are doing. Or at least they know enough. But yeah. For those of you who don't know, the difference between the 3 different Kabbalahs is Kabbalah with a K is Jewish Kabbalah. This is the OG original Kabbalah. Kabbalah with a Q is the Hermetic Kabbalah. And Kabbalah with a C is Christian Kabbalah, that you will really only see in old books, including the modern English translation of Agrippa. That is the difference between the 3 Kabbalahs. So you've got Kabbalah with a K, Q, and a C. Of these, Kabbalah with a Q is usually the one people are talking about, unless you're talking to Jewish Kabbalists, in which case, if you start talking about a sphere, Shadow Wizard money gangs are real. Yes, this is true. This is true. Absolutely. Oh, man. Shadow Wizard money gangs are true, and if you misspell something, you will have to... Oh, boy. There's also a lot of wordplay in the occult. Like, the occult wordplay is great, because if you you know, it's one of those wonderful things of, if you start looking at occultism and you start doing the wordplay, it makes you go slightly insane. It makes you go slightly insane. Because, like, I wrote the... You know, a lot of things regarding the elements are in plain sight. A lot of elements in plain sight. Like, if you go and take a breather, you're going to think. If you're suffering from burnout, that's a problem with the element of fire. Right? And there's all these little idioms and things that are all just they're all just there. They're all just there, and none of them make any sense half the time. But this is just what I've decided to do. I am an explainer of nonsense, it seems. Occultism is only filled with foreplay if you're doing what the ancients called natural magic, what the Thelemites call a Tuesday ritual. All right. This is my first live stream. And we're going to be doing I'm going to aim to do these every week. Once a week. Starting today, I guess. And we've been going for a little bit now, so I'm actually going to wrap up the stream. Because part of this is I have... So here's the ulterior motive for streams. I take streams and I chop them up into bite-sized chunks, turn those into reels to advertise the channel and feed the algorithm. Because that way more people can see my content, and if more people can see my content, I can do better quality content, and better quality content means everyone is happier, because if the content is better quality, everyone's going to be happy. But yeah. So I'll close it up in like 15. So if anyone's got any... I'll close it up in either 15, or if anyone, like, final questions for this live stream. Last call on the questions. And I promise I won't rant about them for another 2 hours. I mean, yeah, that's what you gotta do. Like, you gotta just turn... You do a big live stream, you cut that up into, like, bite-sized pieces, and then you feed the algorithm, and then the algorithm goes, tasty burgers, and then, like... I know what I'm doing. I'm making burgers after this. Okay. I've gotten Forge Victory. I've gotten Forge Victory, and I've gotten Forge, I've gotten Winter. I got the bad ending of Knock, where you got the 3 wounds. I've gotten 3 wound Knock Victory. Yeah, I think that's it. Because half the time this has been, like, background noise anyways. The ultimate goal of I will stop doing these live streams when I get all the Cultist Sim victories, because I'll have nothing to do as background noise. How about that? That's how I'm going to do that. I'm probably also going to, like, make actual topics for future live streams, so I don't just ramble about the Abra melon for 30 fucking minutes again. Because that's like a hot button topic that everyone seems to be like, oh my gosh, the Abramelin. The Abramelin. Please explain to me things about the Abramelin. There's always Valorant. No. Oh, hey, Chaos. I've actually been putting stuff on the channel. So, like, that's what's been going on. Because it turns out, if you actually, like, put effort into the channel, your YouTube channel will grow. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. What were the magical mistakes of the Golden Dawn that led to their breakup? Do you think that... I covered the Franz Barden books, but TLDR on the Franz Barden question. Franz Barden's initiation into Hermetics is okay. His spirit catalog is utter trash. What were the magical mistakes of the Golden Dawn that led to their breakup? There is a lot of them. Okay, the major ones. Nobody, like, the leaders of the Golden Dawn did not initiate themselves into their own system. So effectively, they were always outsiders to a system that they never entered. Imagine building a house and never walking inside. That's what the creators of the Golden Dawn ended up doing. The other thing is they then proceeded to make it incredibly solar-based, which solar entities, if you're not, congruent with solar entities, will banish you and, like, force you out in a beneficial way, and usually cause people to do this with pride and arrogance. If you've read the reason why the original Golden Dawn fell, it was a power play that didn't need to be done. The Enochians aren't at fault. As weird as this sounds, the Enochians are not actually at fault for the breakup of the Golden Dawn. As weird as that sounds. It was more of a case of the original founders of the Golden Dawn didn't initiate themselves into the most solar current that was ever created at that point. And then you had a bunch of egotists running around thinking they knew better, and then you had the situation where Crowley decided to go in cursing people and got kicked down a flight of stairs, and that really was the death nail in the coffin of the Golden Dawn. Thomas, when I say Barden's spirit catalog is trash, I mean that he ripped the spirits from other different groups and assortments, and then Barden's spirit catalog is like the names of the lunar mansions, a bunch of corrupted names of ATR entities, Arabic star names for the solar ones, the Shemham Farash angels for the mercurial ones. He gives them an incredibly bizarre planetary lineup. He does this awful thing where he puts the archangels from the Picatrix as the genie of the Jupiterian sphere and lists their zodiacal correspondence, and then falls for the meme that all Saturnian entities are actually Lovecraftian horrors. You can read more on that in Stephen Skinner's Complete Magician's Tables. That being said, I'm going to have to... I'll do a video... Expect not the video that's going public on YouTube next week. That's Occult Media. Expect the figure the first video I make, so the second video released of next month, will be spirit catalogs I actually like that are better than Barden. That's the video. Sneak peek. There you go. Yeah, because Barden's spirit catalog is trash. It's probably functional, but he also lists like legions upon legions of spirits from like the demon compendium section of the Abramelin, if I remember correctly. It's an absolute mess. And he does it like all over the place, and he basically just plagiarized like an entire list of hierarchies and went ahead and renamed them. That being said, Initiation into Hermetics is okay. It's okay. Is it my go-to? No, ATRs do not like uninitiated people messing around with them. That's like where we get the whole thing about closed practices from, is the spirits don't like it if you're uninitiated messing with them. And that being said, like, that's what Barden did. That being said, I've heard people get weird results. Okay, so Golden Dawn style Enochian has a weird problem where if you do the evocations, you're going to have a problem. That being said, the Rose Cross doesn't have Enochian in it. If you're talking about the invocation rituals, like the Supreme Invocation rituals, those are fine. Those are fine. If you do the opening by Watchtower, that's usually fine. They have you do that once a week in the Golden Dawn, like, or at least in the Kabbalah Magic and the Great Work of Self-Transformation that me and Frederick Xavier recommend. But the Rose Cross shouldn't have Enochian in it. That being said, there's varying degrees of Enochian, where the more Enochian you get, the worse it is for your sanity, and you start taking sanity damage and going a little bit crazy. If you evoke things like back to back to back, if you evoke things like a normal spirit, like you just got it out of a spirit catalog when you're doing Enochian, and you're doing the Golden Dawn style Enochian, you will go nuts. You just flat out. I would check the Kabbalah Magic and the Great Work of Self-Transformation for like a proper Rose Cross, or just go back to Regardi and look at the Rose Cross from there. Whenever you have a question about a Golden Dawn ritual, go back to Regardi. Just go back to the Black Brick. That is just the safest thing to do. Like, when in doubt and you're not certain about books, that's what you do. Yeah, that's really weird. Oh, analysis of the keyword? No, that's fine. You can use Enochian in the analysis of the keyword. That's totally fine. The Enochian in the analysis of the keyword is actually totally fine. It's just, the issue with adding analysis, like, the issue with the Enochian in the GD system is that it works too well. As weird as that sounds. The problem with it is that it works too well. Oh, this game is Cultist Simulator. Because I'm an occultist. Typecasting myself. Yeah. The issue with the Enochian in the Golden Dawn system... I'm actually going to exit the menu. Yeah. So the thing about it is, the Enochian in the Golden Dawn system, there's two types of Enochian. There's the light added bits that they add to like the Supreme Invocation of the Ritual of the Pentagram, which actually works and makes it work better. It does make it work better, and it doesn't cause you to go like crazy like other Enochian does. But if you're doing like Golden Dawn style Enochian evocations, that's when you have the problems. That's when you get to the cases of like, oh, I'm doing Golden Dawn style Enochian, and I'm totally fine. I've never gone crazy. And it's like, okay, how do you get over the fact that people are like, they're constantly talking to you about the Book of Revelations, really? Yeah. If it's the Exarpe Hekuma Nanta Bitum, that's fine. Yeah, those ones are fine. All right. That being said, I have been Dave. Thank y'all for coming out here. Thanks for the questions. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully people like this, because I'd like to keep doing these. Like, I'd like to keep doing these, and we will see how things go. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna move this to Thursday, so stream next week is going to be Thursday. And if all goes according to plan, there will be occult streams once a week. And I'm also making there will also be a gaming channel type thing. There will also be a gaming channel type thing that I'm still slightly setting up, but, you know. Those will be actual gaming streams, but, and because if I don't just, you know, like, I want to keep most of the gaming content on a quarantine it, so we don't get a bunch of gamers in the occult channel, and vice versa. So yeah. That being said, I'm going to stop the stream, and we will have another stream next week. So if you all enjoy my content, hit subscribe. Take it easy. Hope everyone's having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope your day